Welcome back to the Judgment Infrastructure podcast. So far, we examined why most podcasts fail, why monetization corrupts authority, why a podcast must become a digital twin, how episodes become movement. Today, we address something less visible, but more dangerous. Today's question: why do intelligence creators burn out or drift intellectually even when they are capable? Let's apply 2080 rule. Part 1. What most people see. Most people believe burnout happens because of overwork, lack of motivation, creative exhaustion, personal stress, poor time management. These are surface explanations, but burnout in authority platforms is usually structural, not emotional. Part 2. The critical 20%. Here is a structural 20%. Burnout happens when output exceeds governance. Intellectual drift happens when doctrine lacks a reinforcement. Not because the creator is weak, because the system is weak. When a podcast operates without structured content planning, defined release cadence, clear doctrine boundary, energy allocation discipline, the system begins to destabilize. An unstable system consumes the operator. Part 3. 5 why structural diagnosis. Let's apply 5 why. Why 1? Why do creators feel exhausted after several months? Because producing episodes become heavy. Why 2? Why does production feel heavy? Because every episode requires new thinking under pressure. Why 3? Why is there constant pressure? Because there is no content buffer or calendar governance. Why 4? Why was no governance designed? Because the focus was on momentum, not sustainability. And why 5? Why was sustainability ignored? Because podcasting was treated as expression, not infrastructure. That is the root. Part 4. Governance versus motivation. Motivation fluctuates, governance stabilizes. If your podcast depends on emotion energy, it will collapse when life becomes demanding. If your podcast depends on structure, it will survive mood cycle. Authority requires predictability. Predictability requires governance. Part 5. The 3 risk zones. There are 3 structural risks in podcasting. First, output overload. Second, intellectual drift. Third, platform dependence. Let's examine each. First, output overload. Publishing weekly is not a problem. Publishing weekly without preparation is. If you record 1 episode per week under deadline pressure, you create chronic stress. Solution: batch production. Record 3 to 4 episodes per session. Build a 4 weeks buffer minimum. Inventory reduce anxiety. Anxiety reduction increase clarity. Second, intellectual drift. Drift occurs when you chase trending topics. You dilute core doctrine. You soften framework for engagement. Drift is subtle. It happens when growth becomes priority over clarity. The prevention mechanism, quarterly doctrine review, asks, is this episode aligned with my core belief? Does it reinforce my framework vocabulary? Does it expand my system or dilute it? Drift begins with repetition stops. Third, platform dependent. If your authority depends entirely on Spotify algorithm, YouTube visibility, social media reach, you have systemic fragility. Algorithm shift can reduce visibility overnight. True sustainability require email database, website archive, transcribe episode repository, own content control, distribution must be wide, ownership must be central. Part 6, the 2080 application. The 20% that determine 80% of sustainability. Content calendar governance. Energy allocation discipline. Platform independence. Not creativity hacks. Not productivity apps. Structure. Part 7. Energy allocation as capital. Energy is capital. If you overspend energy in year 1, you weaken year 2. Authority compounds slowly. It is a multiple year game. You must design for recovery cycle. You must design for mental reset periods. You must design for research only weeks. You must design for silence without guilt. Silence with governance is strength. Silence without structure is collapse. Part 8. The compounding model. Sustainable authority follow this rhythm. Create, document, reinforce, rest, refine, repeat. Not create, rush, panic, burnout, disappear. Discipline prevent volatility. Part 9. Long-term framing. Year 1. Use clarity, doctrine, and build archive. Year 2. You expand distribution and community. Year 3. You solidify category ownership, but only if energy is preserved. Burnout destroys compounding. Drift destroys clarity. Both are preventable through governance. Part 10. Practical implementation. To avoid burnout and drift, first, fix your release schedule, weekly or bi-weekly, not fluctuation. Second, build 4-week content buffer. Third, conduct quarterly doctrine audit. Fourth, maintain own archive of transcript. Fifth, set defined off recording week. Design your podcast like a utility system, not a performance stage. Closing principle. Most creators burn out because they chase momentum. Few endure because they design system. Authority is not built in emotion bursts. It is built in control cycle. Protect your energy. Protect your doctrine. Protect your platform. Next week, we move from sustainability to execution. We will examine the 90 days podcast launch protocol, structure, execution. Until then, govern before scaling. plan before publishing, sustain before expanding. This is the Judgment Infrastructure Podcast.